Alright, now that we've learned how to use velocity in our projects, why don't we apply it to our platformer to make it a bit more realistic, and then we'll explore some other things to make it a bit more realistic. So let's just get into this. I'm going to create a copy of this project, and then we can just begin editing. Alright, so the first things first, we need to get our velocity. So we've got our x velocity. I'm going to do for all sprites for now, and our y velocity as well for all sprites, and then I will set those to 0 as soon as the program begins. And then I will do what we did in our velocity tutorial. We'll just change our x and change our y by our current velocity. And then in all of these, we just need to switch those to using velocity. So let's just do change x velocity by -10. Change it by +10. That's for the left and right arrows, and then for the up and down, we'll change our y velocity by a lot to go up, and then down by -10. And let's just see how this works. It probably doesn't look too great, but let's just try it out. Alright, so, yeah, it doesn't look too great. Let's see, so that's going negative a ton. Let's just do -1 for a second and see how that works. Okay, well, this is not very good. Okay, so let's just bring all these numbers really far down. Do -1, 1. I'll just do like 5 here, and we'll see what that looks like. Okay, well, that's better. He kind of falls through things and is very floaty, but you get the idea. Okay, let's try to make this a bit better. Okay, so instead of changing it when he goes up, we're just going to set it to like 10. That way it's not very, yeah, that's much better. So now it looks like he's actually jumping. If I just hold down the up arrow, it looks like he's jumping. Okay, now for the left and right, we need to add that dampening. So we're going to set that x velocity to itself times like 0.8 maybe. And this will just make it so that he stops faster when he's moving side to side. Of course. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, now we got to take care of this falling through the wall situation. It's not that great. Or falling through the ceiling, I guess. So for touching black, this is what we do. We wait, otherwise we change y velocity by -1. Okay, so the question is, why is it still going down when he's here? It's because the y velocity was negative as he was falling down. He hits the black, nothing happens. So what we really want to do is like set it to 0 when he's touching black. Okay, so now he's on the ground, he can jump, and he can move side to side. Okay, he can still go through that. He can still go through things, but definitely looks a lot better. And we can adjust these numbers, maybe make -3, 3, and I still like 10 for that. And maybe -2 here. And 0.9. Okay, cool. I think this is going to be looking a bit better. Oh boy. Let's make this 20. Okay, so now he can jump. He can move side to side. Maybe a little faster than I wanted. -2 and 2. Okay, that looks pretty good. Pretty smooth. Alright, this is looking really good. Okay, so as you can see, this definitely makes a huge improvement on the beginner one that I discussed in like 2 videos ago. Velocity just improved it a ton, but we still have all these collision issues where he can walk through walls and jump through ceilings and stuff, and he doesn't exactly know what that slope means. So I'm going to show you a much better way of doing this using colors in this video. That's kind of like a mid-level difficulty. And then in the next video, I'll show you an advanced way to do platform movement that's a bit more technical and has a lot more math in it. But let's just do this one right now. Alright, so I'm going to move over here to my iPad, and I'm just going to show you what exactly is going to happen. Alright, we're going to move over here so I can do some explaining of what exactly we're going to program. So we've got our cat here on the screen, and what we're going to do is basically just make some platforms, right? So say we have a platform on the bottom like this, right? And a platform on the side like this. So we've got these platforms here, and then we've also got one like this that you can jump onto. Those are really the three I'm going to deal with right now. And the way we're going to deal with those is we're going to use colors to detect which way we're coming at it. Right? So let's pretend that we use red for the top of the box. So if we use red here, we can draw it on the tops of all these boxes. And then whenever the cat is touching red, that means he needs to move up. Right? So that way he knows he's on the top of a platform. Then we could use like yellow for the bottom, right? And that means, well, actually, we probably wouldn't put it there because that's connected. We would put it here, though. That means if he hits yellow, that means he needs to move down because then he would, it's like he's hitting his head. So it would push him down. And then we could use blue and green for the two sides, right? So we can put green on the left side of the platforms, which means it needs to push him left if he runs into it. And we can use blue on the right side of the platforms, which means it's going to push him right if he bumps into it. Right, so we've got our cat. He falls down, he hits red, he bumps up, right? And then he jumps and hits yellow, and it's going to push him down. He walks over here, and then he hits green, and it pushes him back. And then he jumps and goes this way, and he hits the blue, and it pushes him to the right. So this method should work pretty well. The only thing it's not going to work so well is for those slopes that we had. That's why I said it's not like an advanced method, right? So if we have a slope here, then we could obviously keep our yellow down here. We can keep our green over here. But then what do we do about this slope? So if a cat runs into it, then he needs to move up. So it probably makes sense to use red here, but you're going to see some issues, right? And that, I mean, this will probably work fine in this case. But the question is, what happens if you get a slope that is very steep? Like, and it curves maybe, right? There's a certain point where he's going to want to be pushed off of it. So you could just go in there and like, okay, this is going to be blue up here. At what point does it switch from red to blue? I mean, it's not exactly 100% certain. You can do something like this, and that might make it better, right? So when you control your cat, he walks up here, he can walk all the way up here, but then as soon as he hits that, he bumps off. So why don't we try to implement this in Scratch, and we'll see how it goes. Now that we're back in Scratch, let's try to add all of this logic that I just created. So the first thing we're going to have to do is go to our platforms and adjust them. I'm going to make a copy of this so that we can still have the original. Okay, so what I said was we were going to use red for the tops. Right, so I'm just going to grab a line, make it a little thick, and then just put it on the tops of these platforms right here, like so. And then we're going to also try it for this diagonal and see how that works. And then we're going to use yellow for the bottoms. I'm holding shift to make these lines perfectly straight. Okay, yellow for the bottom. And then we need blue and green. Okay, so then I'm going to put a blue here, and then I'll zoom in and make it fit, because dragging on the edges of the lines makes it, nope, I don't want it to change color. Scratch, come on. Okay, there we go. And we'll do the same thing for the green one up here. Alright, just do it like that, and then I'll move the points down, and up. Okay, so now we've completely contained our entire stage with these colors, and now let's see if we can make our cat respond to those colors. Okay, cool. So now I'm just going to add some if blocks, right? So let's go through this logic again. So let's start with the red. Okay, so let's just say that if he's touching red, he wants to move up, or maybe he shouldn't move at all, right? So he can only jump when he's touching red. Let's say that for now. So we're just going to switch this black to red, and we should have basically the same thing, right? Our cat's there, he can jump on the red, and he can jump through the platforms. Okay, well, yeah, he can obviously still do that, and he can go, he can kind of fall down there. Okay, so that's not too great. I'm going to change this to red, whoops, red or black, because both of those colors should count. Okay, so red or black. Put that right there. Okay, that's when he falls down and hits the ground. Okay, cool. Okay, so now for the left, let's say he's moving. Let me add one more platform to this just to make it easier to test. Okay. Alright, so let's add one more platform right here. And I'm just gonna do a little box, a little bump right here. And I'm gonna fill that in. And then I'll add our lines to it. So we need to add the red line on top. Gotta add the blue line on this side. And the green line on this side. Alright, and then because I did that, because I keep doing that, and because I did that, I'm going to move this platform over here a bit so that he can get under. And I think that looks good. Alright, so let's roll with it. Okay, so we've got a cat. He can walk right through that, and we don't want him to. So when we press the left arrow, we're either touching the color blue or we're not, right? So if we're touching blue, we don't want to move. Otherwise, we can allow our sprite to move. So let's add an if-else inside of here, and we can do a touching, and we'll do blue, right? So we're moving left. So if we're touching the blue, then we actually want to stop moving at all. So we want to set x velocity to 0. Otherwise, we can just move like normal. So let's try that. Alright, so now he runs into the blue wall, and that's good, right? Alright, so now let's jump over here. Well, let's see, can I actually get there? Yeah, so now we can obviously go through the wall that way. So let's just do the exact same thing, except switch it up a little bit. So we're doing it in the right arrow, which means this needs to be positive. We can, and then if he stops if he touches green, right? So if he's touching green, then he needs to stop. Otherwise, he can move like normal. Okay, so let's see how that works. Hits blue, hits green. Awesome. Okay, so now let's make him hit the ceiling. Okay, so let's see how this works. So if he's touching red, then he's allowed to jump. Okay, looks good. Now let's just do another check. So if he's moving up, right, so that means if his y velocity is greater than 0, that means he's moving up. If he's moving up and he's touching, if he's also touching the yellow color, then he needs to stop. And we could put this in an and if we want. Okay, so if he's moving up, if he's touching the yellow color, then we need to stop. So set y velocity to 0. Forget about that, right? So once he hits his head, and then he stops, and then he should fall. Okay, so let's see how that works. Let's get under here. Okay, so he didn't fall because he's touching that black color. So let's just see something here. If we remove that and start this over again, we might need to fix something, of course. Okay, so he hits his head. He can't go through the yellow. Awesome. Right? Okay, cool. So now we've created our platformer, and he can kind of go through here, but then he falls down. So that's not good. So the only thing I'm going to change is if he's actually touching black, I'm going to make him move up, like just a little bit. And I'm not going to make him accelerate up. I'm just going to make him move up a couple pixels just to take care of those really weird edge cases. So I'm just going to change his Y by like 3, and I'm going to put that right there. Okay, so that should just take care of any weirdness that we may have. So see, now he can kind of walk up those, and it should be a lot harder for him to fall down. Of course, he's touching black there. Let's set the Y velocity to 0 when we do that as well. Okay, again, this is not like the most advanced platform physics, but it should be pretty good. Okay, so he can walk through there. It's like more like Jello, but all right, here with Scratch 3.0, just editing a little bit. There's a couple improvements we can make to the program we had previously. And first off, we're going to solve that problem of, kind of the Jello-like behavior here, and then also jumping through the ceiling, right? So the way you fix jumping through the ceiling is you can do the same little trick we have for the black, which is it moves it up, except for when you touch the ceiling, you want it to move down. So just do -3 pixels here. And that's not going to fix it entirely, but that should fix it a little bit, right? So we'll see that here. Of course, didn't work that well. So what fixes it fully would be if we don't do this moving up with the black at all. So only do that when you're not touching yellow, right? So if we're touching black and we're not touching yellow, then we can move up. Because when the cat is right here, it's touching both black and yellow, which means it's going to push it up and down, kind of, and whichever gets priority, except if your velocity is coming down, it's going to be pushing him up because of this block here. So now that should work better. Let's see what it is like. So now that successfully blocks the cat from jumping through the ceiling. So that's good. But you're going to notice some issues. When I run into the left, he's still touching black through that blue bar, and he kind of goes up, and we don't want that either. So we can just do the same thing, right? We only actually want to move up if we're touching if we're not touching any of these extra colors, right? So if we're not touching yellow, or we're not touching green or blue, right? It's okay if we're touching red to move up. So we're going to put these in here, and we're going to select green and blue. So if he's touching black and he's not touching one of these 3 colors, right? The knot is on the outside, then it'll move him up. So now if he bumps into blue, it doesn't move him up because he's touching that bit of blue right there. Okay? And same on this side. Cool. So now the only thing left to solve is that kind of Jello-like behavior going through here. So this is a slightly more advanced concept, which we'll be using in the advanced platformer, but I'm going to show it to you right now because it's actually kind of straightforward. It's not that bad. So here's this idea, right? If he moves into the side, right, he just moves a little bit, he is kind of stuck under the wall, and we want him to move up. But this is making him move up 3, but sometimes he moves into the wall faster, so he needs to move up faster. So what if we did, he's touching the color black, we need to repeat until he's not touching the color black, and we just move him up. So why don't we try that? So we shall repeat until he's not touching the color black, and then we'll change Y by, we'll do 1, just to be precise. And put that right here. So let's try that. So you can move left, right, jump, seems good, but once he goes over here, we kind of get this choppy motion, and it's hard to control him, so that's not what we want. And it looks like there was a bug right there. That was strange. But to fix that, we can actually just create our own block. And what's really cool about this is when we create our own block, we could call this move up. We can check off this button right here, run without screen refresh. What that does is it means everything inside this block will happen instantly, okay? And that means instead of repeating kind of slowly, it will happen instantly. So what we have to do is drag the repeat until in this move up block, which is going to happen instantly, and then put the move up block right here, right? So we just created our own block. And if you run this, you'll see that he can move up pretty quickly, right? So now everything seems to work as expected, except for when he moves left into that blue for some strange reason. Aha. So there's a bug where if I push left and then I let go, then he can go through it, right? Because over here we're saying if we're pressing the left arrow. What we should be saying is if we're moving right, just like if we're moving left for, or if we're moving up for this yellow one. So to make things perfectly how they should be, so if you're pressing left, then that's going to be negative. So it should be if the x velocity is less than 0, then you do this. Right, so I'm going to restructure this because I guess I didn't really know exactly what I was writing before. So if the left arrow is pressed, we're going to change our velocity by -2, right? If we happen to be touching, if the x velocity is -2 and we're touching blue, then that's no good. Right, so we can simplify this so much more. Right, so if we're going left, x velocity is less than 0, and we're touching color blue, then just stop moving. Right, so we make sure we do this one first, and then we check this one after. And we're actually going to do the same thing for green. So that'll be right arrow. This will be +2. This will be, oh, Scratch didn't add that feature yet. Greater than 0 instead of less than, because he's moving right. And then this will be the green. And that means we, whoa. Undo. That means we can replace this chunk of code here with the right arrow and the green block with this chunk here instead. Right? It's following the same logic as above, and that should fix all the bugs, I think, right? So we can go to the right, we can go up the slope, and now if we go to the right or the left and we let go, he still bumps into it. All right, so I think that should conclude this tutorial. I just had to correct a couple of mistakes while I was watching the edit, and yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.